A very important question that is asked today is, can women practice yoga exercises? It's an interesting question when you consider the fact that if you walk into a normal yoga studio in the West, you'll find 60 to 80% of the people practicing yoga are women. It is also interesting to note that historically, yoga was only practiced by men. And was that because it was a male-dominated society, or were there other reasons for this happening? Well, let's go back. Let's go back and look at the system then. And we will find that yoga is practiced only by males. And the reasons were not just because of male domination. The reasons were because the female physiology is not conducive to the practice of yoga exercises. And why do you say that? They found that in the earlier days, women who practiced yoga got very ill. Some of them even died as a result of their practices. They couldn't understand why women were falling sick. All they knew was that women who practiced yoga couldn't handle the yoga exercises. As science has developed over the years, we find that in the last 60 to 80 years, we are beginning to understand the female physiology better than we did 1,000 or 5,000 years ago. And we have found that the female physiology makes it difficult for women to invert the pubic region during menstruation. So, if a woman were to practice yoga and not have access to antibiotics, and if she were to do an inversion of the pubis during the yoga exercises, she would not be able to allow the outward flow of the menstruatory blood that comes out, and that would make her body toxic. And that toxicity, if not addressed with modern day medicine, would kill her. Now, taking that into consideration, let us look at yoga exercises, specifically yoga asanas, which have developed over the last several thousand years. The yoga asanas were created to help men to harness the libido. Now, when they harness the libido, they do it with the knowledge that we have a prostate, and the exercises are focused at accessing the prostate region and helping to reabsorb the seminal fluids, to reabsorb the sexual fluids, and by doing so, to raise the kundalini, to raise the power in the cerebrospinal fluid. These exercises are catered towards men. Now, if a woman does these exercises, it's not going to harm her as long as she doesn't do them during menstruation. Well, I agree totally on that. But is it helping her to achieve the same goals that are achieved by men when they practice yoga? And we are finding that the answer is no, a big no. We have to revisit yoga posturing. We have to reconsider the type of postures that women can do. And we have to understand that the female physiology is totally different from the male physiology. We have to understand that the history of yoga posturing was focused towards the male. And we have to eliminate a lot of yoga postures for women during menstruation, and we have to include a lot of other postures which may not necessarily be the best postures for a man to do, but are extremely beneficial for women. In my practice of yoga, in my teaching yoga over the last 25 years, I have met thousands of women. I've had personal one-on-one discussions on this subject with them. And I have found that a lot of women end up having problems with the regular cycle. A lot of women find that there's a stop in their menstruation when they practice yoga. And I'm bringing this out, I'm opening this can of worms. And I know a lot of people are not going to like me for this. But I'm doing this with the hope that maybe we can start catering to the modern woman who loves yoga so much. And maybe we can start evolving the yoga asanas in a way that will be beneficial to the female physiology. And if we can do that, there is no telling how many thousands of women will be benefited. Because what I see now is that a lot of women who get the benefits of yoga when they are okay, when they are not menstruating, are destroying all those benefits when they continue the same practice during the cycle, when they are not supposed to do it. So the traditional mantra for women in yoga is, do not do an inversion during menstruation. Well, that is not really true. We know that if you are doing a shoulder stand, for example, you can keep the lower body horizontal by using 2 chairs or a bench and invert the upper body and do a shoulder stand, because the main statement should be, do not invert the pubis. And one of the main exercises that is done by women during menstruation, the way Baddha means placed, Kon means angle, and this was a pose they found in the earlier days because Indian cobblers sat on the street corners fixing footwear, and they found that these cobblers never really had any sexual dysfunctions. And that's how this pose was introduced into yoga. Now, if you notice in this pose, the pubis is horizontal to the floor. And the stretch that takes place over here allows an opening in the pubic region to let the flow come out. Also, if we were, let's join the feet together, bring the knees together and take the legs vertically up and go closer to the wall. This pose, the pubis is horizontal with a very gentle tilt towards the abdomen. But if I were to do this pose on a height, and if I were to introduce a little height, now it changes a little because there is a bigger tilt to the pubis. And that may not be very good. Very good. That didn't sound very good. Okay. That may not be the ideal posture for a woman to use during menstruation. I'm going to kick it up a notch. Let us revisit the yoga postures. Now, it is important to note that this pose, which is called Viparita Karini, involves an inversion in some form because the legs are up and the body is down. Now, if I want to do this pose, I can do it in several different ways where the physiology of the body is the same, but the relationship of the body to the external environment is different. So, one of the ways I can do it is I can do it by standing up and bending and placing my forehead on the wall. Now, this is the same pose. Step back a little. That's perfect. Yeah. This is the same pose as the previous one. The only difference that has taken place here is gravity. In this pose, gravity is going dorso-ventrally into the ground. In the previous pose, it was going ventrodorsally into the ground. And it's a standing pose here, while that was a supine pose. So, when I am working and dealing with the female physiology, what I need to do is, whenever I'm doing a pose which involves the inversion of the pubic region, I change my physiology in such a way that the inversion is eliminated. And by eliminating that inversion, I make sure that I am not drawing inward and upward and harming my body. There is other ways by which this pose can be done. You could stand on your head and take the feet horizontal, legs horizontal to the ground, but that would not be conducive during the menstruatory cycle. The pose that you would like to look at during menstruation is downward facing dog. This is a pose that a lot of people love to do. It's a beautiful pose. In winter, if you were to do this pose, it will keep your body warm. I remember doing yoga in upstate New York where the temperature was freezing, and my heat went out one day and I did this pose and I started feeling warm. This is a warming pose. But observe very carefully that if you look at the pubis, it is inverted right now, and you're drawing the energy and the flow is going back into the torso. Something that we do not want to do during menstruation, because this is not going to help the female physiology. Now, what can I do to achieve the same type of a stretch where I am pulling the energy up without allowing the reproductive region to come in a position where it's going to harm my body? So one of the alternatives in this case is, I can take a chair, I can put my hands on the chair and do it this way. Everything else works perfectly the same way, except that the tilt in the pubis is eliminated. If you don't have a chair, I can turn around, I can place my hands on the wall, and I can do the pose this way. It may not feel the best as the downward dog, as any woman will agree, but it is definitely going to be better than doing it in the normal way when you're menstruating. No mula bandha. No mula bandha, no Uddiyana bandha, because the mula bandha is connected to the Uddiyana bandha. The muscles are connected. The moment you tighten and grip the anal knob, the pubic region will also tighten and come out. Extremely important. And most women, they are so dedicated in their practice that it hurts to realize, it hurts to note that they're actually going backwards with the same amount of power that they're going forwards. And there is no real growth in women in yoga. We say that we should not do inversions during menstruation. Let us look at a standing posture. Toes together. If you notice, the best way to do a Tadasana is to bring your feet in like this and then push them down on the mat. Okay? We have to remember that it's not the yoga posture, but the inner dynamics that are involved in the yoga posture. What you do when you're in the yoga pose. So a proper Tadasana or a proper mountain pose involves pressurizing the bones of the feet balancing the weight between the mod of the pinky toe, mod of the big toes, and the inner and the outer heel. Now suck the calf muscles in, draw up the kneecaps, tighten the quadriceps, bring some little energy there, open this pubic region, draw the abdomen in, roll the energy from the shoulders without hyperextending the lower back, lift up both regions, and then point your fingers down, relax the throat, the tongue, don't forget. And now with a gentle smile, observe what happens. Now, what is happening in this pose is we are trying to draw inwards and upwards. In many ways, the Uddiyana Bandha. We are trying to draw inwards and upwards. Relax the hands. From here, this is not an inversion, but this is not the ideal posture to do during menstruation. Standing is okay, but the moment you start using the energy and drawing in and up, you are actually doing the same thing that you would be doing in an inversion. And this is where you will not draw any benefits if you're menstruating, but on the other hand, you will harm yourself. So, every posture has to be looked at very specifically, not only because of the position or because of the physiological relationship of the body to the environment outside, but also because of what happens internally in your body. And if internally you're drawing in and up, that is a no-no during menstruation. Because when you really look at a Tadasana, it is actually a Sirsasana or a headstand. Thank you.